Another principle that I have adopted, and that you might already have understood that I have it from what I have said before, is that information is not to be taken emotionally. Information is to be taken pragmatically. And it was one of the most difficult things for me to do, probably, because I am a very emotional person with a very vulnerable nervous system. And before there were a lot of things would make me scared and would make me anxious. So at the beginning, when I realized that I'm not handling emotionally all of the informational field, but at the same time I need to be aware of what is happening, because otherwise I don't feel safe at all, I shut down the emotions completely, and that was a mistake. I do not recommend to shut down emotions, because it might feel like it's not something that I can recommend or not recommend, because it's something that happens then you just are overwhelmed, and it's really hard to regulate. But shutting down emotions has very bad further consequences, because those emotions which are not lived through, they are staying inside of our psychic, they are staying inside of the body, they create anxiety, they create physical pain and maybe even physical illness, they create nightmares and inability to sleep and all of these things. So shutting down emotions was a bad thing for which I paid my price. But what to actually do if there are, like, you cannot imagine through what emotional hell we have been through at the beginning, like in the first half a year of the war, before we acclimatized a little bit. It was literal hell, and Russians were making sure that we were in that hell. They were creating specific events, they were doing specific things to make us feel emotionally bad. And the thing which I feel like might help in such situation is actually just to distinguish emotion and what is actually happening. Because when something happens and I become emotional, I feel like what has happened becomes my totality. For example, when my city was attacked and a lot of people were it was this feeling of rage and helplessness at the same time. And this feeling, it takes all of the system. It becomes complete, it becomes total. And it becomes the same for all of the people in the city. So the whole atmosphere and the whole city becomes like this. And also other people from other cities sympathized with us as well. So it was the totality of this feeling, of this state of helplessness and rage and hate. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I need to somehow distinguish it. I need to somehow realize what has happened, like on the ground, physically. And to separate an emotion from this, to understand that this is my emotion, this is what actually happened, and this is me. And I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I still live my life. I continue living my life. Because if you allow the emotion to become total, it defines your life. And you don't want your life to be defined by fear, rage, and hate. Because it will be a very bad and miserable life.